The motion is, this House believes technology companies should prevent government access to consumers' data. I look to Michael Lee, Magdalen College, the Treasurer-elect, to open the case for the proposition. Hear, hear.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It is an honour to speak for the proposition tonight. On the proposition side, we stand for a right to privacy, which, though not absolute, should not be invaded without a vigorous process of scrutiny. We stand for a recognition of the fact that government agencies, whilst many founded with the best of intentions, have complex motives behind them, many of which might not serve the public good. We stand for the great mass of citizens who, while having done nothing wrong, quite understandably fear constant surveillance, which is neither necessary nor sufficient to improve our public safety. It is with these fundamental principles in mind that I ask you to vote with our side this evening. I'd like to present to you this evening two arguments. Firstly, that technology companies have a fundamental and unequivocal responsibility to safeguard consumer data. And secondly, allowing greater government access to consumer data will not make us safer. I suggest that companies should not just resist government attempts to access consumer data, but moreover, they should actively seek to lock themselves out of consumer data. They should build the system, they should build the house, and then throw away the key. It is for the data owner to have their own stewardship and their own custody of their information. But before that, it is my great pleasure to introduce our loyal opposition bench this evening. Opening the opposition case is a dear friend of mine, Mr. Owen Rappaport, who has worked tirelessly in putting this debate together. Owen is known fondly by fellow committee members for his characteristic booming voice and laugh. And so loud, in fact, that I really don't think the NSA need to bother tapping any of his phones or houses. There's really no need for that. I'm sure you won't be needing a microphone tonight, and I wish you the very best of luck. Following up from Owen is Matthew Olson, who has been a leading US official in the fight against counterterrorism and the defense of national security. Most recently, he served as director of the National Counterterrorism Center, and on leaving this role, President Obama said, "Most Americans may not know Matt Olson's name, but every American is safer for his service." I would make a joke about Mr. Olson, but he probably knows more about me than I know myself, so I'm gonna stay clear of that. Following on from Mr. Olson, Air Marshal Chris Nichols will be wrapping up the case. He joined the Royal Air Force as a pilot, spending the first 9 years of his career in Germany flying Jaguar fighters. After that, he moved on to flying desks as Assistant Chief of Defence Staff for Operations, and finally serving as Chief of Defence Intelligence and a Deputy Chairman of the Joint Intelligence Committee. Mr. President, these are your opposition speakers, and they're most welcome here tonight. Thank you. So moving on to my first substantive point. On this side, we submit that technology companies have a fundamental duty to defend individual privacy. The technology sector operates on the cutting edge of innovation, and we have seen the immense power of technology in revolutionizing how we communicate, how we work, and how we socialize. These platforms are entrusted with personal and precious information by their users, us, our aspirations and our deepest fears, our thoughts and our most private conversations, medical records, financial statements, Snapchat screenshots, everything's in there. We are owed the best level of protection that they can afford. Checks and balances on government and intelligence agencies should be a collective responsibility and one held by technology companies too. It is not an exclusive responsibility of the courts, and us as stakeholders have to have a role in ensuring that any access to consumer data and any intrusion on privacy is both warranted and justified. Sadly, we do not live in a world where people are free to express their opinions, free to love who they choose, or indeed free to practice their own beliefs. Authoritarian regimes around the world persistently seek to silence those who wish to express their own opinions and persecute those who wish to lead their own lives. Journalists, human rights activists, political activists, dissidents, whistleblowers, they all face a very real and very true risk if their data is compromised and exposed. These are the individuals who will face a clear and present danger, a danger to their causes, a danger to their families, and a danger to their own lives if these authoritarian regimes around the world, these evil forces, are able to compromise their data and see what they wish to accomplish. There is simply no political recourse. We can't take this issue to the ballot boxes. There is no privacy-led movement. We used to have the Lib Dems for that in this country, but where are they now, right? So elected politicians are simply not in a position to conduct rigorous oversight and scrutiny of our intelligence community. They are not given full details on their activities, and indeed they have very little expertise in this area. Jack Straw, when he was Foreign Secretary, claimed he had no idea of the UK's collusion in CIA extraordinary rendition operations. He was our Foreign Secretary at this time. They do not have the access, they do not have the expertise. Moreover, they do not have the incentive to pursue reform or robustly challenge the activity of our intelligence agencies. My colleagues on the opposition side may suggest to you that if you have nothing to hide, then you have nothing to fear. Edward Snowden summed this up very well by saying that arguing you don't care about the right of privacy because you have nothing to hide is simply equated with saying you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say. If individuals have the right to privacy, nothing to hide is completely irrelevant because it is our personal information and we control access to it. If I shred lots of my personal documents, admittedly completely harmless, and put them in a bin, if I look outside and someone's rooting through my scraps and shreds, and they'll say, oh, it's completely fine, you have nothing to hide. It's not about that. The custodians of their data should have their own right to choose who sees their data, who sees what they have stored and entrusted with technology companies. Moving on to my second point, enabling government access to data will simply not make us safer. In the aftermath of the devastating Paris attacks, intelligence officials queued up in front of television cameras, tabloid journalists, to blame messaging applications offering end-on-end encryption for facilitating these dastardly attacks. These platforms, WhatsApp, Telegram, are indeed known to be used by organizations like Al-Qaeda, ISIS, or indeed candidates running in union elections. And the technologies behind these mean that the company that provides the platform is simply not able to decrypt the messages. Only me and my partners on this side are able to see what we're communicating with each other. WhatsApp and Telegram can't simply log on and hand over what we've been corresponding with. And if we wanted to ask technology companies to provide a mechanism of entry into this, this would require some form of a backdoor. And there is simply no backdoor that's only there for the good guys, only there to be accessed by law enforcement agencies. By introducing a vulnerability, this is a vulnerability that any actor, a nefarious state, an organization, a company engaging in corporate espionage, they are able to exploit. This is just like leaving a spare key under the mat outside your house. It's there for your helpful neighbor to find when she's there to feed your pet. But it's also there for anyone who wants to rob and ransack your house. And on this side, we simply do not submit that introducing a vulnerability like that will make us, as consumers, as citizens, or indeed companies around the world, safer. The government in this country already has considerable powers under RIPA, under the Terrorism Act, and we do not need an extension of the powers. If we go back to the Paris case, which I mentioned earlier, 7 out of 8 of the terrorists were known to intelligence agencies before the attacks took place. They corresponded using unencrypted SMS messages, and they corresponded through Facebook Messenger. We would already have the power to wiretap and intercept those messages. So we do not need an extension of the government powers. Intelligence agencies simply need more resources to better and more effectively discharge their responsibilities, and we do not need a massive extension of government power. And furthermore, just because we trust our government today, does this really mean that we trust future governments? And I'm looking at Owen and his friends on the other side of the Atlantic when I pose this question. Do we really trust the people that we're providing custody and the right to access this information? I mentioned before about these authoritarian regimes. They will seek to exploit these backdoors, exploit this access, that whilst in this country we may have due process, we may have courts of law in order to determine what the proportionate access to this is. Once you introduce this into a platform, it's open for exploitation by anybody, anywhere around the world. We are at a critical juncture in deciding what we, as citizens, value. This is not simply a debate about who has access to our data. Instead, this is a debate about the society we wish to live in. We need to safeguard individual privacy and those transformative, powerful freedoms. The freedom to express yourself, the freedom to innovate, the freedom to challenge what you see. In the face of the dastardly terrorist attacks we have seen, our response should be to cherish the liberties that we have fought for, the liberties that define the nation we live in today. Terrorizing our own citizens is far more dangerous and achieves the overriding fear and societal breakdown that terrorists seek to accomplish themselves. We do not need to bring the hand of government into each and every one of our pockets and handbags. We do not need to disrupt our current way of life. We do not need a society of malleable, docile bodies. You and I will not be safer through further government access to our data, and therefore I am proud to bring this motion in front of you and ask you to vote with me on it tonight. Thank you very much.